So normally when we engage in action, action comes out of desire. If we normally look at how actions happen, predominantly actions are rooted in some desire as a thought, which then manifests as action. And the desire, which is the root of action, of course, is of different types. There are some which are very, let's say, dull or very harmful, some which are very outgoing and causing a lot of activity, which makes a lot of impact on others. And then there are some which are very calm, which are still coming out of desire. So traditionally, these are called as the three gunas: tamas, rajas, and sattva. And these three gunas impel one as desires to engage in actions. So people who are having desires which are of the nature of dullness, for instance, engage in actions which are harmful, such as engaging in self inflicting, that is, inflicting violence on oneself through addictive substances or through eating unhealthily and all the rest, or inflicting violence on others, as we see unfortunately happen a lot. And then there are those who are engaging in actions which are caught in the mode of passion, where there is a lot of apparent energy which is stemming out of a sense of certitude, which is having its own division, and it causes a proselytizing attitude. So many times people go out, engage in so many actions. We see this especially in people who are so closely identified with either a religious belief or a political ideology or an activism or of any kind, that impels people to have a desire to act. And that kind of action also causes a lot of disturbance in society. It can also create a lot of impact. At the same time, it also creates a lot of disturbance. This kind of rajasic action, as it is called. And then there is the action that's coming out of a mode of goodness or a mode of charity, where people engage in actions which are out of a desire to help others. They engage in, there are many who engage in activities which are in terms of helping people with education, helping people with preventing diseases. There are so many well intentioned non-profit organizations and so on, for example, which are working on various aspects which are rooted from a mode of goodness, working on children's health or women's health or education of people in general, so many other various initiatives. So that creates more of a positive impact, but there also we can see a great limitation in that the action that comes out of even that mode is always partial. Because, for example, if we take education, for example, if we help educating children, which on the face of it is very noble. But if we are educating them without giving them the holistic understanding of what is the reason for education, and if one is educated in math and science and technology, which is enabling them to make money, enabling them to have a career, and all the rest, but they do not have the wisdom of how to live as a loving human, then such education is only partial. Same is true with helping anyone with any particular cause. When we do that, it helps certainly, but it also is partial and sometimes it has even unintended consequences. So, these are the ways in which actions happen predominantly in society, right? But is there another source of action outside of all these three? That's the question to explore. Can one act not impelled by a desire to be dull and to indulge oneself, or a desire to just go out and be a go getter, or even a desire to just be caught in some charitable activity and that type? So, if we look at this, then we first see that all these three are rooted in the sense of the self as a me who is interested in acting out of an image that has of oneself. If one has an image of oneself as simply the body and the mind, which is only interested in gratification and pleasure, that self image is what impels one to act in a very dull way. There is no reason to then get out of the bed in the morning so we can sleep. There is no reason to eat healthy because it's more pleasurable to eat unhealthy foods. And when on the flip side, there is no meaningful purpose that one can therefore connect with, then it causes depression, it causes anger, then it causes one to harm oneself, harm others. All these actions come out of this mode of dullness. So we can see this clearly in society and also in oneself. When we are ever caught in the mode of dullness, which is an identification with the body and the mind as me, and only looking for gratification of the body and mind and the senses, then we can be caught in this mode. So to be aware of it is to be free of it. Similarly, if one has a self image which is identified with some cause, if I believe that I am belonging to this religion and I have to make this religion spread all over the world, this kind of action we have seen a lot, which causes tremendous violence, tremendous disturbance in society, and a lot of action. Or it cannot, it can be something more subtle as well, that I have an idea for a business and I will do whatever it takes to make it happen. So that is the same mode of action which one can get caught in. Or I have a belief in some activism. I believe I have to work on the environment or something like that. Some activism I take up as a cause and I identify with the cause, then that very cause becomes the self image. I am identified as that. I am this. So, nationalism, religious identification, or identification with one's trade, one's profession, or sometimes it can even be identification at a very smaller level. For example, identification as a family member. So one can say that my only purpose is to take care of, I am the breadwinner of this family and I'll do whatever it takes to take care of my family. So then all of this is a strong identification that causes action to happen, but such action is always partial and it affects others and it in turn invites negative reaction from others, and we see this in society all the time. So this is the reason for a lot of violence as well, because when one acts with a lot of certitude and the other person has a different kind of certitude, then the two clash and there is violence and there is conflict. So this we see in society as well. Unfortunately, many people caught in this when we are brainwashed by being affiliated with a particular ideology, with a particular religious cause, with a particular activist cause, and so on, then that generates a lot of action, apparent success, but it also comes with a heavy cost. And it most importantly does not give a holistic sense of living with the perception of everything as a movement of one divine energy. So we'll come to that later. But more importantly, it just recognizes, if we recognize rather, that that kind of action causes us to be engaged in a lot of apparently productive output, but it comes with a heavy cost. It also causes a lot of physical harm because people, for example, who are very obsessed with a job or obsessed with with anything, they don't eat well, they don't probably exercise well, they don't take care of their own body. So there is a cost in that sense as well because there is no balance. There is just a obsession with a particular particular cause. And so that kind of action, we have to be very aware as well. So it's not talking about others, it's talking about ourselves. Are we identified with any such cause, which can be, as we said, even a strong identification with a position in the family or attachment in general. Attachment as husband can result in the same kind of action where one can just do whatever it takes and it results in, again, very partial action. Then there is the other mode we spoke about. Again, there also there is a self image, the self image of a do gooder. So we have a self image that I'm a do gooder and I have to do good to society. And therefore, there is this desire to engage in these kind of charitable activities and so on. But if we are aware of all of this and we recognize that all of these are just images put together by memory that we are carrying as me. And when I am identified with any memory as me, that very memory divides. It divides people into us versus them, or into right and wrong, or into good and bad people, and all the rest. So, even in a relationship, even in a work situation, even in society in general, we see that when we are identified with an image, then that very image becomes the filter through which we judge people, we judge actions as well, and therefore we are always caught in this identity that is stored in the memory which has come from the past through conditioning, through whatever we have gathered. And that conditioning, which is literally washed the brain, has taken over as the self image, as the me. And that therefore creates a very fragmented or a narrow viewpoint of the world, where we just evaluate everything based on that identity or that image. When we are aware of all this, that this is the trap in which humans in general fall, all of us, everyone in the 8 billion humans, wherever we live, wherever we work, whatever religion, whatever country, color, whatever it might be, everyone is susceptible to this trap of being caught in identity. And when we recognize that this identity that is stored in the memory, which is taking over the organism as me, becomes the deciding factor for action, then that very factor is a corrupting factor. It corrupts all actions. It brings forth a very partial outlook, and it brings forth with it anxiety, with insecurity, and most importantly with judgment. And such action only causes eventually disturbance of some kind. So when we are aware of all of this, that this is the nature of action that predominantly happens not just out there but in each one of us, and when we are fully aware of this, and then that very awareness, if we give full awareness to it, then we can be free of this self image completely. And when there is no self image, when we are aware and thereby free, when we ask the question, who is acting? So the question, who am I, is not a mechanical question, but it is to be seen as a practically relevant question in every realm of life. So if we ask the question, who is acting, we will find out it is the self image that is acting. The me, which is an identity stored in memory as either a nationality or a religion or a cause or a skill or a family position, whatever it might be, it is just that me that is acting. And that me is always partial because it's very limited. So when we see this very clearly, and in that the me dissolves, because seeing is dissolving it. Normally, when we don't see, we are identified with it completely. The moment we are able to be aware of it, the very awareness is the light which dissolves it. And that's what we do in satsang, is to be aware, just shine light on what's going on. And when we shine this light within ourselves on what is the structure of the me, what is causing action to happen, and why are we acting, when we are aware of all of this, and in that the me dissolves, then we find that there is an empty stillness that is there. If we ask the question, who is acting, again, and we find out that the actor is nothing but an image of memory, and that is not truly me, it is just a thought. And in that very recognition, the actor doesn't have a hold anymore. Then what remains is just the intelligence of the organism. The body is here, the heart is pumping, the liver is working, everything is working perfectly, and the brain is sharp because the brain is now not caught in some false identity and washed by that, but it is fully awake, alive. And when the brain is fully alive and awake, with no image of the past being carried and covering it up and clouding it, then there is a complete emptiness or a complete stillness. That emptiness of the ego is the brain being fully available for action now. And that action then comes out of a holistic attention to life itself, where there is no judgment of any kind, where there is no categorization of things as right and wrong, good and bad, I agree with this, I disagree with this, without any of that filter, if we just look at everything as is, it starts at the home, in fact, how we look at the person who we are with, let's say. If we look at them from the filter of the past, we only look at it as an image that we have stored in the memory. And though, so we don't actually see the person, we only see the image we have of the person, and we constantly are comparing them with the image, and we say when the behavior conforms to the image we have, we like it. When the behavior doesn't conform to the image we have, we don't like it. So there is always the duality of I like, I don't like, I agree, I disagree, because all of this is coming forth from the image that is judging everything. When the image is absolutely washed out, it is completely flushed out, and there is a total emptiness. This is what is the space of no ego, no me, stillness. And when there is this stillness, total emptiness, then whatever is seen fully as is, whether it's a person, whether it's a place, whether it's a thing, whatever it might be. And that complete seeing and accepting of the situation is unconditional love. There is nobody then looking, there is only looking. When I'm looking at a person or looking at a problem, even looking at a situation, looking at a technology, whatever it might be, I'm looking at, the looking is not coming from the filter of what's in it for me. Because the me, when it's flushed out, then there is only pure looking. And when that looking happens, then in that looking, there is unconditional love. That is acceptance, love, total attention. All of that is just that. And that is the impetus for right action. When we are in that unconditional love, whatever comes out of that is right action because it will respond to what is. It is not based on a pattern stored in thought from the past. It is not a memory that is acting. It is not an image that is acting. It is a direct attention of what is with complete acceptance. And it's very most immediately seen with people when we are living with someone or when we are interacting with someone. If we completely accept them with this absolute emptiness of no filter from which we are looking at them, there is an unconditional love. And that unconditional love will automatically bring forth the right action that will be the most beneficial to everyone in that situation. The same is true with, let's say, even action in the realm of any field, whether it's science or whether it is technology or whether it is politics or whether it's education, wherever we go, if we are, whatever field one is engaged in, if we look at the problem we have in front of us, let's say we are working on a technical problem or we are working on a startup or anything it might be, if we look at the problem holistically without the filter of what's in it for me, without the filter of only profiteering from it or getting a name out of it or getting some security out of it, if all those considerations are flushed out and we look at something as what can be done here to make this situation better, what can be of service here, then that attitude of service that comes forth out of unconditional love is the impetus for right action. So that action is not conditioned by either the three gunas, as we said, either tamas or rajas or sattva. It is not, because all three are rooted in the mode of self image, where there is a me that wants something out of that action. When that me is seen and thereby dissolved, then unconditional love comes forth. That unconditional love has its own intelligence, its own energy, its own vitality, and it brings forth action. Many times people ask, if there is no me, then am I going to simply become inert? It's quite the opposite, because when the me is what corrupts actions, whatever actions we do, it causes actually only disturbance in society, which is what we see all the time. But when the factor of me is not there, the body has its own intelligence, it can never be still. So, this is the conundrum. The stillness of the mind and the stillness of the body are two different things. So, in the Gita, for example, Krishna says the body can never be still, which is exactly the way it is. At the same time, we know that the mind being not still is the source of all problems. So many times people mix the two and they think being still means the body has to be simply inert and still. That is not only not possible, it is impractical. The body is always acting. Even when I'm sitting doing nothing, there is so much activity going on in the body. The blood is flowing, the heart is pumping. It's like a roar of an ocean going on inside the body. So the body is always moving with its intelligence. But the mind, which is not still, which is the me that is always identified with something, is preventing the natural intelligence of the body from expressing itself fully. So that's the actual problem which is facing the human condition. So when the mind is still, then the body moves in the most harmonious way. There are those who, for example, who dance or who play sports, they have come into this very directly. The body is engaged in action, it's dancing, it's playing, but there is complete stillness, and in that stillness there is poetry in motion. So the body is never going to be inert. The question is, what makes the body act? That's the only question. The default condition is the tamas or the rajas or the sattva makes the body act, and that is always partial, and that causes different levels of disturbance. Of course, the tamasic action causes a lot of disturbance in terms of violence and suicides and all the rest. Rajasic action causes a different level of disturbance, and sattvic less so. But all of them cause disturbance at different levels. But when there is no such hold in the mind of the false me, and the mind is therefore still, and there is absolutely no image of the past carried in the mind as me, and the mind is empty, then in that emptiness there is the fullness of perception. Everyone, everything is seen as is with unconditional love. And that unconditional love is with tremendous energy, and it has got its own vitality, as we said, and it brings forth action. And that action is right action. And that, to come in contact with that, is the essence of self inquiry. And that is the essence of, we have many fancy words like karma yoga and surrender and all that. All of this is only pointing to this one simple thing, which is when the me is seen as false and emptied, the action that happens without the sense of doer, which is an action that is happening out of unconditional love, is right action. So that is, to use traditional term, that is bhakti, jnana, karma yoga, all of that is all there in that action. And such action coming out of unconditional love brings forth the only lasting change in society. If we look at, for example, even historically, We don't remember which king ruled 2500 years ago, but we still feel the impact of Buddha's life today. We don't care for which leader was prominent 100 years ago, but still the teachings of Ramana Maharishi are having their impact today. So even we can see that those who are caught in action which is rooted in the three modes of gunas, it's forgotten quickly. Whereas the one who is acting, he may not do much, but when he is situated in this unconditional love, that impacts society in the most profound way. Therefore, to bring forth such action is the true purpose of human life, and that is what we can call as right action. Many times it's a source of confusion for all of us that we think action in the world and one's quote unquote spiritual journey are somehow kept in two different compartments, as it were. And that is also a division which causes conflict. So we go to office, let's say, or do whatever we do, and then we come home and let's say meditate. And if the two don't meet, then we are living a fragmented life. So to unify life is the purpose of true meditation. It's not about seeking something as an experience when I'm sitting with my eyes closed and then going out there and engaging in action out of unconscious identification without bringing this quality of meditation in my action. So, if we can live meditatively all day, that is true meditation. And that simply requires us to make everything dovetailed towards living in accordance with this highest principle. So, again, as everyone knows, this is why the Gita is spoken in a battlefield, not in some Himalayan retreat, because it's in the battlefield of action that one has to realize this. So, when we are able to, therefore, bring forth right action, that is the surest sign that we are living meditatively. And that can be something we can be aware of every moment when we are acting, even when we are, let's say, doing something very apparently mundane, like making lunch or whatever. Is it an act of love or is it coming out of some desire? It's a very simple way to be aware of where we are acting from. If it's an act of love, food can be prepared with love or eaten with love as well. And that's the principle behind prasad, to eat, make food and eat it with love. But if we just see it as a means to an end and just do something and have some, either eat for the indulgence of the taste or whatever the goal is which is coming out of the me, then that very food is reduced to eating of the food is then not meditative anymore. It is just another action that happens unconsciously. So it can be seen in every action, very simple to the most difficult action. All of that can be seen where we are acting from.